The walls of Jerusalem rise out of the morning heat like something conjured from Scripture. You have been walking for 3 years. Your boots wore through somewhere in Anatolia, and you replaced them with leather stripped from a dead horse. The man to your left has not spoken in 2 days. The man to your right is weeping, not from grief, not from pain, but from the simple, overwhelming fact that the city is real. It is there. It is exactly where God promised it would be. Around you, 50,000 voices rise at once. And the sound is not a battle cry and not a prayer, but something between the two that has no name in any language you know. But let us go back to where it begins, to a field in France, to a single voice, to the moment the world tilted. It is November 1095, and you are standing in a frozen field outside the city of Clermont in the Auvergne. 10,000 people have gathered to hear Pope Urban II speak, and the air is so cold your breath clouds in front of your face with every exhale. You are a knight, minor nobility, a small estate in Burgundy, a sword your father left you and a horse you bred yourself. Your life until this moment has been local, bounded, defined by the same fields and the same feuds and the same stone church you have attended every Sunday since you could walk. Then Urban speaks. His voice carries across the field with a clarity that later you will attribute to God and never question. He speaks of Jerusalem, of the holy city under Seljuk rule, of Christian pilgrims turned away or worse, of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, of a wound in the world that has gone untreated for too long. He speaks of a road that leads east, and at the end of that road, absolution, full remission of sins for every man who takes the cross. You feel something move in your chest that you have never felt before. Not ambition, not fear. Something older and more certain than either. Deus vult. God wills it. The crowd takes the words and throws them at the sky, and you hear yourself shouting with them, and the sound fills the field and rises above the frozen trees and goes somewhere you cannot follow. 3 weeks later, you have sold half your estate to fund the journey. You have no doubts about this. The army that assembles through the spring of 1096 is unlike anything France has seen. Knights and peasants, priests and merchants, young men who have never held a sword alongside veterans of a dozen local wars. You march together through the Rhineland, through Bavaria, down through the Balkans, the column stretching so far ahead and behind that you cannot see either end. The roads of Europe cannot contain this many people moving in one direction, and the villages you pass through empty their stores, and sometimes their prayers and occasionally their fear. Constantinople arrives like a rumor, made solid. Standing before its walls, you understand for the first time the difference between imagining something and seeing it. The Emperor Alexios receives your leaders with cold Byzantine courtesy and moves the army across the Bosphorus into Anatolia as quickly as politeness allows. Anatolia teaches you what the road truly costs. The summer heat is dry and total, pressing down from above and rising from the baked rock below simultaneously. Water becomes the organizing principle of every day. At Dorylaeum in July, the Seljuk cavalry hits the vanguard without warning, and for 2 hours, the outcome is genuinely uncertain. Arrows from every direction, horses screaming, the line bending until the main force arrives and the Seljuks wheel away into the dust. You fight that day with a clarity you have never experienced before. Afterward, you sit on the ground for a long time and say nothing. Antioch appears in October. Enormous walls set against a mountain, garrisoned by Seljuk troops, with no intention of opening the gates. The siege lasts 8 months. You watch your supplies shrink, your horses die, your companions fall to diseases with no names. You eat things you will not describe. You pray more than you have ever prayed, and you mean every word. In June 1098, the city falls through a betrayal from within, and you pour through the gap into streets that are nothing like the holy liberation you imagined at Clermont. But Antioch is not Jerusalem. You keep moving. The road south from Antioch takes another year. Smaller cities, smaller sieges, the army thinning as men fall or turn back. The further south you march, the more certain you become. Not despite the suffering, but because of it. Every hardship is a proof. The logic of the pilgrimage, once accepted, is absolute. You cannot have come this far for nothing. In June 1099, you climb a ridge in the Judean hills, and Jerusalem appears below you in the morning light. White stone walls, the gleam of the dome of the rock visible above the roofline, the city real and solid and present, after 3 years of it existing only as a destination. The men around you stop walking. Some kneel. Some cannot speak. You stand and look at it for a long time and feel the accumulated weight of every step you have taken, since Clermont pressing upward through the soles of your feet. The siege takes 5 weeks. On July 15th, 1099, the walls are breached. You enter through a gap in the northern wall with the sun overhead and the city opening in front of you and the sound of 50,000 voices at your back and 3 years of road behind you, and you know, with the absolute certainty of a man who has walked from Burgundy to Jerusalem on faith alone, that you are exactly where God intended you to be. You will stay in Jerusalem for the rest of your life. The estate in Burgundy passes to your nephew. The horse you bred yourself died in Anatolia. The sword your father left you hangs now in a stone house 100 meters from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, in a city that is yours in a way no piece of land in France ever was. The First Crusade covered 5,000 kilometers and took 4 years from urban speech to the fall of Jerusalem. Of the perhaps 100,000 who set out, fewer than half arrived. What they built in the Levant lasted less than 2 centuries. What they changed in the relationship between Christianity and Islam, in the movement of ideas between East and West, lasted considerably longer. But none of that is what you think about sitting in the evening light outside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, listening to the city settle into night. What you think about is the field at Clermont, the cold air, the voice that carried, the moment the world tilted and you tilted with it. If this march moved something in you, press like. It tells the algorithm that history still matters. Subscribe for more first-person journeys through the ancient and medieval world. And tell me in the comments, at which point would you have turned back? Anatolia, the siege of Antioch, or never?